Hello, guys. Yeah, this has been one heck of a day with Murphy's Law. As you guys know, Anne Alston and I from the Businessmen and Women of Color were supposed to be doing this broadcast together. Because of technical difficulties, some reason, it continues to act up. Anne is watching. She's working on something else. Hopefully, we can work on this together and still as we remain. Okay, Ann is watching. Thanks for joining us, George Taxman Johnson. Guys, listen, I am really very frustrated right now. I know I probably shouldn't say that live, but it's the truth. I don't know why it's acting up. Anyway, let's get to the business of that. First of all, we're happy that you guys. Hey, Galen, how you doing, brother? Glad you joined us. We're happy that Felix. And how are you, sir? Thanks for the wave. And I'll say hello to Ann. And Ann is, listen, guys, let me back up. Ann has really been trying to get me hooked in and get me connected. But for some reason, my telephone just would not cooperate. So I have to apologize to Ann. But, we want to get in tonight and talk about self-publishing and the dynamic of self-publishing, and since we wasted a lot of time trying to get started, let me just jump right in. First of all, as we talk about book promotion, we know there are outlets other than social media, and we talk all the time about social media and putting things out on social media. However, hello, Miss Ann. I'm sorry, dear. I'm disappointed because I want to work with you. I'm hitting invite. Okay, there he goes. Adding. But as we start talking about book promotions, there are always a lot. Okay, hey, Ann, can
There
you
I
hear me?
am.
Okay, great. We're here together now. Thank goodness.
Definitely here together finally.
Finally, Murphy's Law
Yeah,
was working overtime.
I know, but you know what? We got it going on. So thank you for having this webinar. And I definitely just shared it with the group so that they can take part in the live webinar. And hopefully people can get some really good information from this webinar where we're talking about how you can sell your book and, the dynamics of all of that. And we have a lot of publishers, a lot of authors, speakers, or people who just want to write a book. And so now you're going to hook them up.
Hey, Pat. I'm sorry. And it's one of my former students who I love dearly. He's a great, great, great young man, and his name is Patrick Dwayne Stewart. He's in the Air Force, and he's joining us. And I just wanted to say hello to him before we got going too far.
All right, cool. Well, why don't you just go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you do, and how did you get into publishing, so that folks who are not familiar who you are can, get to know Melvin.
Well, listen,
That's my
great.
father's name, by the way.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Well, hey guys, my birth given name is Melvin Lars. Friends call me Chief. I originally got into writing because, quite frankly, it's something that I always loved doing. But having been an athlete and being allowed myself to be pigeonholed and told there were only certain things athletes should do and it wasn't manly, I really did not explore my interest in writing until I got to be an old man. And why do I say that? As a coach, I was blessed to have a lot of success and some failures. And I was diagnosed with leukemia, was told I was not going to live. I'm here talking to you. So, I write a lot because I like to express myself, and I just like to get the thoughts from other people. Thus, I'm also a businessman. I'm a retired principal, a retired central office worker for the Michigan Department of Education. I no longer work in education as a job. We all are consultants once we retire. Most of my time is spent writing. So that is who I am, and that's where I'm going at this time. And I was very lucky because I stumbled up on Anne, quite frankly, with the businessmen and women of color, and she and I have been doing some things ever since. And she's just fantastic and just a great lady. And hopefully tonight we are able to share with you some things about self-publishing, some ins and outs, some of the idiosyncrasies, some of the hidden secrets that no one talked with you about. So, Anne, thank you very much, and I'm ready to roll.
Okay, well, let's start with just the general thing of just the mindset of wanting to write a book, right? We all say we want to write a book, but from your, you know, really good advice for folks who are thinking about writing a book for the first time and maybe a couple of challenges that they might run into so that they just don't, go out there and they say, oh, this is not working out, right?
Yes.
I think for people to know the realism when it comes to trying to put a book together, and the realism of, is this something that's going to be useful to someone, or is it just a read?
Wow. Those questions are extremely strong questions because, many times our egos get in the way and they say, well, heck, I can write a book, or I read this book and it wasn't that good, etc. When we start writing books, and it's just as you and I are talking and sharing with our friends, there has to be a passion. I mean, I really have learned over the years since I've been writing is that you have to have a passion for wanting to get information out, for wanting to share with others, for wanting to know their opinions, not only about your writing, but about states of the world and things that are taking place and the world at large. So, and I would just like to share that as we write, as we share as writers, and as we listen to other writers, is that we keep our minds open and also understand that we're not the only one with a thought. So it's
Right.
very challenging. But but as we go forward, even in talking about book promotion, we talk about our likelihood of writing and book promotions. A lot of times people say, well, how can I promote my books and how can I get them out and who should I tap? Who should I tap? I'm sorry. And I tell people all the time, hey man, hit your schools, your school districts, your various civic organizations, your churches, go out to athletic events, use the local print and visual media that in your towns, and even dare I say use Mama Nim to get the
Mom.
information out there. Yeah, use Mama Nim. And you have various hospital boards and things of that nature. I love to tell people about these various boards, and I really stumbled upon some of that as I was presenting my first book. Actually, I wrote my first book. Oh heck, it's been 27 years now, and it was a
Wow.
book of poetry. It was a book of poetry, believe it or not. And actually, I look at it now and I say, man, those people just being nice to me because this poetry is very elementary. I'm being honest. The first, but what I did not understand when I first began my journey writing was actually how to promote that book and to get it out there and to really get people involved. I didn't know to as you're sharing your story, uh, you should be very candid and very brief if you can, but concise. So just these different areas that we have, and for me, being an educator, I was fortunate to have an arena already set somewhat because I had students and then we had parents, colleagues, etc. So writing is certainly something that I would encourage everyone to do. I mean, there's a book in all of us.
Yeah, there's definitely a story to be told. But when my aunt, God rest her soul, she passed away about 4 months ago. One of the things that she said as a speaker and her desire to write a book is that, one, you definitely have to have something to say. That's the
Yeah.
first thing. And number
Yes.
two, you have to be transparent in your story because you have to relate to your audience or whoever you're trying to relate to. Because if
Yes.
you're not parent, if you're not open and honest about what it is that you're doing as far as your passion or your story, then how do you expect people to relate to what you're doing? And when you read a book, you're literally relating to them in their mind and in their imagination. And you have
Absolutely.
to be candid with that. And sometimes it can be a little tricky if you have a background that's, you don't want people necessarily to know, but there's still a way that you can tell the story without telling all the story. So you touched on that one talking point that you have, which is promoting your book. What was one of the first things that you kind of did to help promote your book once you got it all written and everything, and
Yeah.
you it's ready to go? What were some of the things that you did to do, to promote your book?
Well, actually, one of the very first things that I did, there's a friend of mine, unfortunately, who's passed on now. I was sharing with him. I said, "Hey, man, I think I will write. I've been talking about writing poetry forever. I think I'll just do some poems and maybe put that out there." I was just recovering from my first bout of leukemia, quite honestly, and I thought about, a lot of times people have these bucket lists, to be very frank. And I was talking. I said, "Man, I think I'll write this, put some poems out there." And I decided to do that. Didn't know what I was doing, made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of errors, but I was able to get the book done. I was able, as a matter of fact, through my pastor, I actually found a printer, and he and I still have some rounds to this day. We're no longer associated, but I won't bash anybody. But there are just a lot of things that you have to be careful about when publishing. So my very first thing was to take that bucket list and to write that first book, which was a book of poetry. And that book, quite frankly, got me started, and I've been on fire ever since.
Wow. Okay. And so, what do you think is some of the techniques that you need to do, or maybe you shouldn't do, when you're, getting sales or trying to promote your book? Because I know for me, I try to sell my books when I go to events, not so much on Amazon, because you don't really get much on Amazon or any
Right.
other platform unless you really like out there. But what are some of the things that worked for you specifically when it came to promoting and actually making sales for your book?
That age-old saying, word of mouth. I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, as to how much support initially I received, and dare I say, I'll be very frank with you. I, I said, you know what? I said these guys probably think I'm going to die from this cancer, so they're going to come out and support me. But what I found was, and I can laugh about that now. What I found was is that people didn't think because I was an athlete that I could actually write. Seriously, I mean, you get stereotyped as being the dumb athlete. So after it was discovered that I could actually write, then I had people helping me to promote. Now let's warn them early, and you're going to always have those hook me up brothers. You're always going to have people that say they support you, but they always want the hookup. So I will say this: I did have some of the hookup brothers to at least help me promote. So that is actually how I got started. Made a lot of mistakes. Didn't understand a whole lot about the publishing business, and still learning, quite honestly. But that's how I got started.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about your second topping point is building personalized an audience. Making sure that you are catering to the audience. When you wrote your book, um, were you already talking about or thinking about what type of audience that you wanted to cater to, or you just wanted to write the book because it was in your brain and you just wanted to get it out? How did you personalize your book to your audience, or did you even do that?
Excellent question. Yes, I did personalize my book, and let me tell you why. I've always been an activist, and I tell people all the time, this is nothing new with all this craziness with 45 and all of that. So in my poetry, because sometimes people didn't want to engage because maybe they may have been afraid of their jobs or they may have been afraid of offending someone. Within my poetry, I would write poems that would make people think. I'm very serious. They will make, and they would read my poetry and say, wow, man, wow, it really makes me think. It really makes me think. And I say to you very honestly, that was my premise from the beginning, was to get a conversation started. And having had a little background linguistically, we always say words or process starters. So sometimes, and I still do it now, I would call upon my vocabulary to purposely to put words that I thought they may have a little difficulty understanding the full connotations, and then they would come in and say, "Man, well, what is this? What are you talking about?" So it gave me the impetus to be able to talk with them and to express, because I was, as you talk about that, Ann, very quickly, my thing was very simply, I never could stand that word student athlete, and let me throw it in there real quickly. I could never stand that word student athlete because people try to minimize your intellect. So I would use vocabulary because of that. I would write things because of that, for my own satisfaction.
Okay. All right, cool. And so because you did that, certain people kind of gravitated to your book
Yes,
and that birthed some of the other stuff that you come out to write after that, right? So
yes,
what are
yes.
some of the other publications or articles that you've written based on that feedback from your initial book?
Well, one of my books I titled Painted Images, and I titled that book Painted Images because of a lot of the craziness that's going on right now, the racism and the hatred and all of that. So I wanted to write some things to help people to think. And one of my major poems that I wrote was called Nobody Asked You. And I wrote that poem because I wanted people to understand very simply is that there's a simple process called fertilization. And nobody consults the egg before it is fertilized. So that was one of the impetus for that book. Another one was being that quote student athlete. I wrote called "What Do You Do When the Crowd Stops Cheering?" because I wanted athletes to understand that all of this talk about having something to fall back on, and it's not about falling back; it's about stepping forward. So,
Right.
Painted Images was geared a lot to not dealing with the crazy racism and all of that kind of thing, getting us open our eyes. But my most prized possession to this day is titled "Dying on My Feet." And I shared with you earlier about being a leukemia survivor. I was a high school football coach. I had a lot of success, and I say this very honestly, not bragging. I was very blessed to have a tons of success. My high school head coach recruited me to come and coach with him. Well, we had great success while he was there. When he left, a lot of our athletes left, and some other things were happening, and I seemed like I could not buy a ball game. I was just so frustrated, and went through some craziness, and unfortunately, the leukemia hit. So I decided that I was going to write the book, Dying on My Feet, because I wanted to write it from a perspective of perseverance and strength and motivation, and that's how I got to my latest book that I finished a year or so ago. Now, my newest book is called Mothers and Their Men, an introspective look at mothers rearing their sons. Because,
Yeah, and a lot
yes,
of that posted to the group. And by the way, folks, if you haven't seen, I'm just going to go back a second. If you haven't read his painted images, please do. It is on the BMWC magazine because he was one of the publishers there that contributed an article there. And you can also contact him directly for that link and some of his other ones. But yes, I was going to ask you, your inspiration behind the mother and son that I kind of post that in the group because it's not totally business related, but it is related in terms of our culture and how we are raising our sons, and are we raising our sons to the intellect where they can start a business or they can be on their own and not, like you said, fall back but go forward.
yeah.
So talk a bit about that.
Well, listen, that book was inspired by my dear mother. God bless her soul. She'll be 85 in about 3 weeks if the Lord can let her continue to live. Unfortunately, my mother was I won't say a victim, she was a survivor of severe domestic violence. And as a child, I couldn't understand why she would continue in that situation. And some things transpired. I made a few challenges, and I happy to say I was not able to follow through on them because she did not allow me. But I looked at a lot of different things that was happening with young men, even the young men that had quote dads in the house unquote. And I thought about, wow, man, our moms are really phenomenal, and somebody needs to write something that looks at the intricacies of moms and their sons. So thus, when I came up with mothers and their smen, people say, "What is a smen? What do you mean smen?" I said, because respectfully, sometimes as the son, you have to be your mom's son, and respectfully her man. And I had one lady that actually get upset with me once about that. She said, "Oh, but that doesn't sound nice." I said, "But listen, ma'am, listen to what I'm saying." I said,
I
respectfully.
relate to
Yeah,
that. No, I relate totally because I have four sons and they all have respect as a man, but they're also my sons. Plus, you have my husband on top of that. So,
yeah,
yeah, I can really see where you're going with it. And
right,
there needs, this is where it needs to come from the root, from the family.
yes.
So, getting to your book, that first of all, that's phenomenal. And I have
Thank you.
to say, I am so amazed about that you are a survivor, your mom's a survivor, and you are paying it forward by helping them understand how to get past that moment. So when it came to your book, all your books or your publications when you were trying to sell them, did you engage in a lot of pre-sales? prior to, so that you got people excited about you? And tell the other authors how you did that, so that they can kind of get an understanding of how to pre-sell their book.
But you know what? Pre-sales, as we know, are very important because everybody talks about budget. And the name sounds really nice, and it sounds all in a nice little package and things of that nature. Unfortunately, unless we are of great wealth, then the budget and really not understanding the full aspect of publishing, it can be very cost consuming. I can say. So pre-sales are very important because you get a gauge of kind of where you're going, who's showing interest in your book. If you are preparing to order books, am I going to am I going to order too many books to start my sales? Because again, we all think that we're going to be a bestseller, and we may not say it out loud, but we feel like our story is going to be so phenomenal until everybody's going to buy it. And I can remember, quite honestly, I was at a book signing, and one of the gentlemen was up talking, and he was talking about people do not understand that if you have $10,000 worth of books sitting in the corner, then that means that it's $10,000 worth of books you've purchased, but no one else has purchased. So we have to be careful when we start to publish. So we want to pre-sale to kind of have a measuring stick somewhat to see who's interested. And quite honestly, I'll say this, and I'm done with that part of it, and we can elaborate more. But I call it being able to eliminate those individuals that say, yeah, I support you, I'm going to buy your book. Well, hey, listen, we have a pre-sale special going on right now. You'll already have your book. I'll make sure it's autographed and get it to you. Then that's when you start getting those individuals that will start to make excuses. Well, I don't have a credit card right now. I don't have a check, things like that. So it kind of gives you a gauge, honestly, as to be cautious as you order books, as not to just have them sitting in your living room or sitting in a storage room someplace collecting dust.
Right. I think one of the most important things that people need to remember when you pre-sale is that you're actually, like you said, gauging your audience. Then you also have to deal with the fact that if these people who's supposed to order your book don't, you got to have some thick skin. You got to understand that, if they don't buy, you move on and you don't worry about it and you don't take it personally. Um, if you're pre-selling, doing, like if you have a fund, not a fundraiser, but if you have an event or a party, or maybe you go to an event, you can pre-sell your book, tell people about your book. There's so many ways you can pre-sell your book and still get the money that you want. I think personally, you should order no more than maybe 80 books for your first book, because that's what I did with mine. I had a specific purpose. I knew that I was going to use my book for a tool, and therefore I would either give my book away, because another publisher who I really respect told me that most of the times when you do your first book, you really should buy some to just give away so that you could spread the word of mouth, so that you could spread your awareness to other people, and then you build credibility around that. So I purchased 80 books, and half of them went to people who supported me, and the other half went to either I gave it away at a function, or I donated it to someone who really needed the book, and then that just brought awareness and credibility to my services. So you got to be very strategic, when you do the pre-sales. Now,
Yeah,
when
we
it
do.
came to yeah, you do. You want to keep elaborating. I mean, we could go all day, but at the end of the day, I gotta stop being. I can't be sitting here mad because somebody didn't buy my book, right? So I got to move forward on that.
Right.
So, so you went and chose a publisher. You self-published. Did you go through like Amazon or another platform to publish your book, or did you go through a main publisher, or somewhere like that?
I went through a main publisher. I did some research on various publishers. Every publisher likes to tell you that they're the company to go with, and it's going to be cost effective, and you can get your book published today. So what I did, I simply started to research various publishers, and the one that I chose was one that I thought would be most cost efficient, and I liked their product. They sent out a copy of the product and all of that kind of thing. Within that process, I was learning as far as the self-publishing process is that there are certain things that happens once you load it up and send it to them, and then they say, well, then come in the proper format. It'll be $75 for this, or if you want this on it, it'll be $100 for that. And then well, if it's color on this page, it'll be this the page these page how many color pages do you have, how many black. So there were things that I had to do as I started to research publishing companies, and some would do free spines and some would not. Some would offer free covers if you use their covers, or if you wanted to send your own cover in. Some would simply ask you to upload it, and then sometimes that would be a quote surcharge, if they had to format it. So I have to say I put a lot of work into deciding on which publisher I was going to go with.
Mhm. Okay, well, that's cool. So, in your experience on the publishing, did you have any bad experiences at all in terms of the outcome of your book, either through formatting or just a visualization of the book, or maybe just didn't print it? I know for me, when I first published my book, I actually had to send back about 40 books because they printed it so fast that some of the pages were off, the cover wasn't quite right, and I ended up calling the publisher, and they were right on it. They were very good at resending my books. But if you're on a timeline, that could be disastrous, or if you have a book signing coming up, it could be very disastrous if you have books that are not printed correctly. So, what was your experience when you first got your books in the mail?
Unfortunately, I had some books that were backwards, literally. Had the cover, when you open the cover and then it go from the back of the book to the front of the book. That, of course, was very frustrating for me because I had, I think maybe 10 or 15 like that. Then I did not receive the full order. Like if you're ordering 250, you might get 238, numbers like that. And sometimes, quite honestly, I don't know if it was a formatting, but when I was reading through some of my information, I said, well, the grammar has been all scrambled up, and this is not correct, and that's not correct. So I did run into some issues like that. And then, of course, when you resubmit, depending on the publishing company that you use, there's always a surcharge, to correct this page or correct that page and things of that nature. So those were some of the things that I ran into with my self-publishing.
Okay, cool. All right. So basically, now we're here at the book signing. Now, according to your topics, you kind
Yes.
of wanted to touch upon, some of the places that would be good to do a book signing. I know some people use churches, some people use libraries, but what have you found to be the best course of action to have a book signing and have people actually want to come out?
Well, for me, because my books primarily are quote family books, inspirational books, talking about my survival of leukemia or things of that nature. I've found civic organizations, churches, even quite honestly, Barnes and Nobles have been extremely uh, accepting of me doing book signings with them. Before Books of Millions left my local area, they would work with me well. But as you've already stated, churches, civic organizations, I've gone to some schools and did some speaking, and quite honestly, have sold tons of books to teachers and universities. So all of the places that you named are good. In addition to speaking engagements, as you well know and as you alluded to earlier, many. As a matter of fact, I went to a local church here in Louisiana, in Bossier City, Louisiana. Quite honestly, and the pastor, of course, was very very generous himself. However, the members, I was overwhelmed. I mean, I was just really overwhelmed at the those individuals that came up and purchased books and wanted autographs and the whole nine. So there are various venues that we can use that we're sharing, and sometimes people are just excited about what you have to say and what you share with them.
Okay. All right, awesome. And I was going to ask you about the speaking because I know for me, speaking is very important to selling your book.
Yes.
If you if you're not out there with a story and a book to support it, it's going to be very hard for you to sell your book.
Extremely, extremely.
Okay.
And,
All
and
right.
you know,
So,
but as you share that, Ann, I've tried to say that to some of my friends. Of course, they get offended. I have actually two friends and I won't call their names. They didn't give me the okay to do that. But and they're not watching, so I'll say this, that at the behest of probably getting in trouble when they once we re-air. But they've been very frustrated because they're not having the success they thought they would have. But one thing one must be cautious of is be sure you have a book and not a pamphlet. That's one thing. A lot of people publish pamphlets, and they call them books. Second thing is, as we've already talked about, is to know your audience, have something to say, and then know in situations where people will be interested in hearing what you have to say. And that's very important. And unfortunately, be very frank with you, I have read some books because I try to support writers, but black writers in particular. There's no shame in my game. I do, and it's like, man, this needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work. So we really need to be careful about the materials that we're putting out there. Of course, grammar is important. Word recognition is important. And just an English lesson. Not overusing the same word over, situations of that nature.
okay, well, when you said that a pamphlet versus a booklet, give me an example of someone, I guess, had wrote a book, but it came off like a pamphlet. Is it because of the number of pages, or do you think it was just the content that came off a little market, like a market type of thing, like a brochure? Because I just want to make sure I understand your theory when you said make sure you write a book, not a pamphlet.
Well, and I say that non-sarcastically. So to answer you specifically, many times, you know, pages are important whether we like it or not, especially when we attach a cost. And I've
Mm.
seen individuals attach a cost, $20, $15, $25 for 60 pages or 70 pages or possibly even 100 pages. They're asking $25 for the book. It's been my experience as I've gone to various book signings and as I do my books, etc. I hear that, I listen very closely, and I hear people making comments all of the time about they want what, they want how much for this book. I mean, I can read this in 15 minutes and things like that. So I just wanted to just share, and I'm glad you asked me to clarify that because it weighs heavily on the number of pages, also the content, because as you've already stated, many times books are maybe books on some kind of technical directional kind of thing, but the title would make you think that it may be a book of inspiration, it may be a book of insight, and once you open the book, then it's kind of like a downer. So, and I'm not
Right.
being sarcastic, I'm just trying to give some pointers to individuals that are thinking about writing or that have already written before.
Right. Okay. Well, let me ask your perspective on this because you touched on it a little bit. Why do you think there's so much scrutiny over purchasing a book? When someone sees a book and they see the price, as you talked about, why is it always this stigma of why should I pay $10? Because we literally go out there and spend, I mean, people spend money on weird stuff. Okay. They can spend $10 on chips and a soda. They can spend $50 easy at the movies because it's a movie they're only going to see one time. But when it comes to the books, why is it such a scrutinized, you know what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
thing over $10 or $15 if you know, especially if you know that the person is engaged in whatever service and you know that the value is there. Why do you think that is?
Sadly, and this is just one man's thought, there's an old saying that we beg for what we want and I'm sorry, we pay for what we want and we beg for what we need. When people see books and they see the author, it kind of goes back to that hook me up syndrome. And I'll be very frank with you, I have dealt with that a lot. They will spend 20 minutes and if I can personalize this and answer your question, they would spend 20 minutes talking about how inspiring the book, what inspiration, this is some good stuff. I'm going to share it with my aunt, my dad. They spend 20 minutes doing that. And then when you, then they say, well, how much does this cost? And you say 20 bucks or whatever you say. And it's like they almost fall on the floor. So to answer your question, many times people do not value you as a professional. They do not value your work. They do not
Right.
value the growth that they gain from it. And sadly, sometimes I'll be honest with you, I think sometimes we as authors we give away too much of the information. So by the time they leave us, they figure they don't need to read the book because we've told them so many exciting points until now they're good, and they're gonna take that 20 bucks or 25 bucks, and as you've already stated, go buy their chips and soda, and
That's
it may sound crazy, but I'm telling you, it happens.
Lay's right now. I need some Lay's and cranberry juice right now. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of, it is very discerning to me because I work with so many authors and they have tremendous information. I mean, tools and all kinds of information that will help people. But then there's always this, oh, I don't have $10, or oh, it's only $10. You're supporting an author who has, really sat down and written what was in their heart and their mind and what could be possibly helping them therapeutically, because I know when I wrote mine, it was a therapeutic moment. But if their value is there, why waste time telling you all this stuff? And I'm just going to jump on your bandwagon because I see other authors, not just myself, but I see other authors going through the same thing. And so the whole effort of this particular interview is to raise awareness to that so that we can change our mindset in how we're supporting authors today, especially Black authors. There are more Black authors coming out than ever before. I mean, I'm telling you, there are hundreds of thousands now. Everybody is writing a book on something. But if it helps you get past something, if it helps you accomplish something, why not make the investment? And so that's where I am and why I like doing these interviews and making people aware because there's so many ideas and you can learn, like you said, this is information you can learn. People just don't write books just to write books,
Oh,
they're in business.
no,
It's a business.
can I jump in just a second? The two key words that you've just mentioned, value.
And
I said two
investment.
key words and investments. Value.
That's right.
People do not. You see, we do not value one another. Whether we say, "Oh, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." Well, I'm so proud of him. But and as you're sharing, we do not value. And as God is my witness, I have stacks and stacks of books and CDs and all of that thing just to support African American writers, persons that aspire in music, etc. However, most of the time, and I mean most, is never reciprocated. I have family members that are artists, and they will, oh, you gonna buy my tape? You gonna buy my tape? But they haven't bought a book, or have the audacity to say, well, my mom got one. I'm gonna read hers. Things of that nature. So they don't value what you do, and I'm talking personal friends, other
Yeah.
professionals.
It's
I have had people that ask me to come and do speaking engagements, and I asked them, I said, hey, that'll be great. Well, Mr. Lars, how much you charge? I said, I tell you what, I'll bring my books, and if you guys will promote the books, and you just get individuals to purchase the books, then I said, I won't charge you anything. I'll just come and speak. Oh, well, I don't know. We can do that. And then when you give them as a speaking amount, then, of course, they're shocked. But they don't want to support. They don't value.
you know
Unfortunately, they do not value what you do.
another thing too, Melvin, and I think we're going to move on to the next topic is one of the things that I like to do is I like to do research on our current markets as part of teaching about how to write business plans. Okay.
Yes.
And you saw in the group that I posted literally about just one industry in particular. We, as an African American and minority community, spend billions and billions of dollars in the retail market. Okay. However, we cannot sustain our businesses because we are not investing in our own community. And it's evident. So if you will go to like the US Census Bureau and go to the fact finder, look up your industry or your talent or your business, and you will see the tremendous loss of money over the last 10 years that our businesses are not doing. One in particular in my group, I posted about a graphics designer. We have lots of graphics designers out there using WordPress. But if you look at the statistics from the last Census Bureau, you'll see that there are 60% white and other nationalities that are making the money, and minority businesses are making less than 15%. That's less than 15% on just creating a web page. But if we were as a community do like other races or other communities and actually invest in our services to lift each other up, our economy will be like tenfold. But because that knowledge is not necessarily out there all the time or in people's faces all the time, you would think that everybody is making money. We're not making money because nobody is investing, nobody is collaborating. And
Right.
yeah, I'm on your soapbox today, Melvin, because it really frustrates me. And this is why I teach it in career development. This is why I teach it in business, because you just don't understand how important it is for a customer to actually, if they really value, to really pay for your services so you can keep developing and keep, otherwise we're going to be making everybody else rich. We're going to be
Absolutely.
making his dreams come true when we're working for folks, right?
Absolutely.
So we definitely have to like keep this conversation going. So let's just move on to the last part of the interview. What three pieces of advice would you give to those who are watching or watching the playback in terms of how they can be more dynamic of writing a book, publishing a book, and selling a book?
Well, my very first one would be believe in who they are, believe in what you're writing. You have to believe in what you're writing. My second would be to research your information. Don't just go on what you feel like you know or what mom and them told you, because people read a lot of times, as you already alluded to, for information. They really do. And they look for information between the lines. I like to share that with people all the time. So, as they're writing, believe in what you're doing, research your information. And since we're only talking about 3 points here, is have in mind the audience. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to be global, or do you just want to be a local writer? And I really would encourage anyone that's interested in writing is to have a global perspective. We
Mm-hmm.
talk all of the time about being entrepreneurs, being business people, but you do not really get things done by staying in a fishbowl. And for instance, if I can use this analogy, if I'm only big and bad inside my house, but when I step outside the door, I'm whimpering. So I see writing and doing books the same way. I'm not just interested in being big and bad in Bossier City and Shreveport, Louisiana. I want people in Canada talking about my writing. I want people in Venezuela talking about my writing. I certainly want people in the motherland talking about my
Mm-hmm.
writing. So that's my third piece is to be global in your thinking, be global in your thinking, and certainly be global in your writing.
Right, the fishbowl analogy. Here's my thing, and it's amazing that you mentioned that. And thank you, Dennis, and those who have commented, April, who have commented thus so far in the information. I'm hoping this is helpful to you. Um, the fishbowl effect. I literally just was talking to my husband the other day how Facebook, social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, it's a fishbowl of information.
Yes.
When you keep swimming around in a fish bowl and you're seeing the same people over and over and over and over
Yes.
again, you're not swimming anywhere. You're
Right.
literally swimming in a circle. Okay, pretty much like when Finding Nemo, when my favorite little fish, she just going around in circles. She don't know where she's going. Okay,
Yeah.
Dory. Here's the thing, like you said, my three tips is this: we have to step from outside of the technology and actually meet new people, bring
Yes.
in new perspectives so that it encourages you to keep writing. Okay, to keep writing your books, because your books, your passion comes from your book. So I'm sorry, your book comes from your passion. I'm gonna get that
Yeah.
right. So get out of the fishbowl, because I'm telling you right now, if I'm in 10 groups and I see the same 100 people in the same groups, it's time to make a move. It's time to get out the bowl. I don't want to be in the same swim of fish sometimes. I may want to, go to another ocean and see some different fish.
Absolutely.
That's my thing. And the second thing is that we definitely need to invest in each other, collaborate, do some events, talk the talk and walk the walk. Stop wasting everybody's time saying that you're going to help out and all this kind of stuff. Actually do what you say, because in the end, your integrity is on the line, your reputation is on the line. And definitely it causes problems when we don't come together. And Dennis says, yeah, we are stronger together. It's amazing how our people spending money on everything else and show potential to promote themselves. I would tell you firsthand that even with all the work that is given to people, they don't promote their own stuff. And it's a sad thing. I mean, telling you, we're on a different conversation, but I
But
want to encourage
may I
publishers to
interrupt?
take it to another level with books. Yeah, go ahead, Melvin.
Listen, you struck a nerve just then, because you know what? When I got out of the business of being an educator, I was a believe it or not, I was not a promoter, but I was a manager. And most people have heard of the song "It's Written All Over Your Face" by the Rude Boys. Well, I used to manage Marcus Bingo King, who's passed on now, who was the originator, who wrote the song, and I worked with various other artists. And there was a friend of mine that said, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm just saying what you've said. He said, man, why are you wasting your time promoting other people with all of the talents that you have? you know? And I said, you know what, man? I said, you're right. I spend so much time promoting my artist, which is another story altogether when you start talking about publishing. When you go into the managerial business, wow, that's another whole story.
Yeah.
But you're very right. We don't do a very good job of promoting ourselves. But as I say that, let me do quickly before we get off here, brother Pastor Rodney Williams and one of my athletes, Chitranjan. I never could pronounce his name. Chitranjan and brother Dennis, and we always love that brother. Hey, he's a great brother. He and I hooked up via you, and that's a great brother. Brother
Yeah,
Charles Patterson, one of my homeboys here, and Alvin Oliver and some of the others. I just appreciate them signing on and listening to us. But self promotion is big. But people try to make you not promote yourself by labeling you. Saying, well, they're being cocky, or they think, it is not that at all. I have one statement, and I did coin this phrase, by the way. If you are a genius and you are the only one that knows it, what good does it do you? And
Mm.
I ask people that question all the time, and they just stare at me. So as we talk about the self-promotion piece, I repeat that all the time. If you're a genius and you're the only one that know it, what good does it do? Of course, we all understand that there are various ways in which we can share our promotions. But that's why I want to just cut in and say that before I forgot it, because sometimes I get these senior moments, and I want to get that in. I'm sorry.
No, there's no senior mode. We get wiser. But you know what? I want to thank you today for your interview, because there are so many things that we had talked about that can go in so many different directions. But in the end, this whole topic is really how dynamic is your publishing when it comes to your book, whether you're self-publishing or going through a organization, how you're pre-selling your book, and most importantly, surrounding yourself with people who are going to support what you do and buy your books. Because in the end, you can sit here and you can, like I said, I think April said, come on now, and we've been doing the fishbowl thing for a minute. You have to step out of your comfort zone. If that means you have to go to events you normally don't go to get exposure for your book, that's what you're
Yeah,
going to have to do. If it means you're going to have to go out there and start speaking at different places, and then your credibility is going to help support you when you sell your book, that's
most
what you're going to.
definitely.
And most importantly, minorities, you need to support your authors because they are the future in terms of publication. If you go back and look at the history of who writes books out here today, I'm telling you, we're not making money like we should be making money. And if you do the statistics, you will find that other cultures are making billions over African Americans because we are not supporting each other. And we definitely have to support the books. So we're going to end the conversation. Like I know Mel was going to say something. We're going to
one point before you go.
Yes.
And one thing that we need to share, and we don't apologize for it. Other cultures are making millions of dollars of writing about us.
Yes, and writing about it.
Writing about us and plagiarizing things that they hear us say and share in our culture. And they become millionaires. And our people will go and buy their books and won't buy our books from the originators. You know, sometimes, and I got to say this to you too, sometimes I feel kind of like Little Richard when he talks about Elvis and all these other people who stole his stuff. Sometimes I feel kind of like him when it comes to that, you know, because I made the mistake many years ago of posting a lot of things on Facebook and doing papers and stuff. And then I look up and it shows up again out of someone else's voice.
Oh, so
yeah.
Stuff gets stolen all the time. Stuff gets stolen all the time.
All the time.
Definitely, we're not taking the time to thoroughly investigate how we properly market our books, because there's a way that you can market your book where you're not giving away the whole kit and caboodle. That you want people to come to your events and be prepared to buy your book because you're giving them this, you know, and it's not the bait and switch thing. It's not that at all. You know what I'm saying? So
can't stand
if
that.
You have an event into your truth, people will see that and instantly, I'm telling you, I have my books in my car at all times. And whenever I go someplace, if I happen to be speaking somewhere about something else that has nothing to do with my book, when they talk to me, that's when I say, hey, I wrote a book. It's called Empower Thyself. And they say, oh, do you have it? And I say, yes. And I go to my car, I grab like 6 or 7 books, and they literally buy my books right then and there. I'm getting full profit. But if you're just talking about the book, but you're not coming back with any substance, then you're pretty much doing yourself a disservice. So
absolutely,
yeah, those are the things that you have to do when you're trying to sell your book. And as far as the publishing concerned, if you're good at doing create space, if you want to use 48 hours, I think one of my clients had me do 48-hour books, and that was kind of cool. But you just got to be careful who you go with, because like we said earlier,
very careful.
Books can come out kind of messed up, but you want to make sure you're doing the right thing to make sure you have a really good cover, make sure you have those pixels there, make sure that that you have the right size, everything for your book. And Melvin, I want to thank you for being on this, I want to say podcast, but it's not a podcast, but thank you for being on the interview and sharing your knowledge with everybody. And I hope this was helpful. Please let us know what else you want to hear in terms of things like this. If you also want to learn more about other aspects of writing a book or maybe publishing or selling, please let me know. We will get a professional on here and do another webinar to give you that answer. So thank you. Thank you, Melvin, very much.
Listen, Anne, thank you. And I thank the individuals for listening. And, you know, I will say to them, just as you said already, when people try to lure you in, then they try to sell you something. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I was just happy to be on to speak with you about publishing and some of the ins and outs, and to be on with Anne doing the same. And we wish each and every one of you a great and blessed day.
Right. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, Judith, for watching. Thank you, Patrick, Eric, April, and Leroy, and Anita, and everybody else who's watching this playback. Please share some love, share this video, and let us know how we did, okay? I thank you all. I think we're going to hang up now, Melvin. Thank you.
Have a good night.